Alright, first piece out, that's the aerial coil. So that can is pretty good. There's a couple of wee dents on the top which I probably won't be able to do anything about. Getting these out is a bit of a nightmare because they are riveted in. So I won't be taking the coil out of the can as such, but I will be just sealing that off and giving it a really good clean up. You can see here the original paint that was on this chassis underneath that bracket that held the NSC control. So, yep, it was definitely that colour on this chassis anyway. Modifications in around this edge. There's a bit of copper so that the control actually rides up before it gets to the end and shorts to the end. So I don't know if it's something someone's done or whether it was actually part of the design. Maybe they didn't need the full 25k. But we'll pull this apart and we'll have a look at it at some point in a little bit more detail. Alright, there's the tuning getting removed. Alright, so we've got it sanded down about to where I think it needs to be. You can see on the front of the chassis there's still some of the original paint, but it's scratched up well with the sandpaper, so it'll key. The new paint will key in quite well. Inside the valve shield bases you can see a bit of rust. Now I've sanded them out as well as I can. I've got in there with a wire brush, then with some sandpaper. But because that's in there, I'm going to get in with the rust remover and just put that in there. It's the only rust really on the chassis. And once I've done that, she should be ready to go. So I'm just going to treat those, and then we'll hit it with some primer, give it a wet sand, and see how it looks. Alright, well that hasn't worked quite how I planned. And hopefully you can see here just how it's crackled up over the original paint, and it doesn't feel like it's actually curing properly on top of it either. So I'm going to have a bit of a wet sand on the areas where it has worked, because even there's a little bit of crazing. That sandy block's not going to do it for me. Using a 400 grit wet and dry. Yep, wet and dry. That's peeling through that paint pretty quickly. Smoothing it back, I just don't know how well it's adhered, particularly in here. And it's not just this bit, it's where the coil cans were, and the original paint was still pretty well untouched. So I don't know if that's poor preparation on my part that's caused it. Actually, now I've sanded it down, it seems to have adhered quite well. It just doesn't seem to have taken particularly well, but where it has, it's actually feels pretty solid, but it's not coming off. It's certainly coming off around the holes where I'm sanding, and that's fine. What I'm trying to do here is smooth the paint out so that when I put the final coat on, it leaves a nice finish. If I have to take all of this off again, that'll be annoying, but I do have an etch primer that I can use if I need to. So that's our backup plan. Strip it all off and etch primer. So this is not ideal, I'm spraying in the wind. I can't spray inside, and I'm waiting for lulls in the wind to spray. And now that I've set the camera up, the wind's actually gone stupidly windy, which is about typical. So I might just do some attempts on the front side of the chassis, because A, it's the least seen part, unless the chassis is out, and B, it's the easiest sort of flat surface to sand off again. So this is our Pacific Gold. that we had made. Oh, it's really runny. I might just leave it at that thin coat for now. It's just blown all over the top. Alright, well, in for a penny. That's not cutie at all. With this all over my fingers. It's just this is not going to plan. I'd love to blame the wind. But yeah, it's not the wind. This paint is really, it's like it's way too runny and the pressure in the can is way too high. It's not a stinking hot day. And yes, I should probably be wearing a respirator, but I can barely even smell this stuff at the moment. It's been blown well out of the picture before I've had a chance to inhale any of it. As soon as I said that, it started blowing back in my face. So I think we're going to let that dry. I'll give it a bit of a light wet sand and then we'll attack it again tomorrow. Right, it's just starting to get dark here, but I thought I'd go through how I clean up coil cans. 400 grit, wet and dry, folded up, wet, and then just, and it's going to feel a bit horrible. You're actually going to make the can worse before you make it better. But you're just trying to get all the crud off the can and get it nice and smooth. These cans were a bit horrible and I've taken it off, but the brush painting job was just hideous and there was gold paint splashed up the sides of these cans, so I've carefully removed that. Alright, once you got the sides all nice, the top is probably going to be the worst bit, and you can still see, even though I've had a wee bit of a go at this, you can still see there's the remnants of stuff on here. So you need to be reasonably careful. This aluminium is really thin, and I use a bit of well-used, actually this is 800 grit, just something a bit finer when you're getting into the corners, because just like in veneer you can thin out the corners or damage it, but all you're doing is just working your way around and taking off all the crud, trying to make it look as nice as it will. And this is just the first step. So we've got a wee bit here, I don't know if it'll show up, but there's a bit of damage on the can there. It looks like something's either been abrading against it or possibly it's corrosion. So all I'm going to try and do is just smooth that out. I'm probably not going to get rid of it all, but if I can smooth it, I'll be happy at that. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go too deep if I try and go any further with that. So that's it, step one, and it's left quite a dull finish. I'll dry this off and we'll move on to step two. And step two is the time consuming one. I tend to do this on the couch with something enjoyable on in the background, episode of MASH, or I think I've got Engel's Coat Shop on at the moment. That just acts as a bit of happy background noise. This is the stuff I either use this or I use Autosol. Both seem to work just as well as each other. This stuff I'm using because I can't find the Autosol. I don't know what I've done with it. But I bought our IF can in. So this is the second IF. We'll use that as an example for when we're finished, but already you can see, well, you possibly can't because of the light, but it's already much better than what we started with. So, old pair of pyjamas from the Better 3/4, makes great rags, and I'll typically just put a little bit on like that. Try not to spill it all over the sofa. And then probably used a wee bit too much there, but then it's just elbow grease. So realistically, a can this size, this polishing stage, by the time I've gone over the can 2 or 3 times and got it looking the way I want, is probably going to take 15-20 minutes per can. But you're just working that polish into the aluminium and burnishing it up, and you'll find it'll get stiffer and stiffer and stiffer as the cream picks up aluminium, and it'll get black, and you'll get black everywhere. Do not get the black on the couch or you'll get shot. But you can possibly see already, and if we just buff that off, so that's not nearly ready, but it's quite dull, and the bit we've done is nice and shiny. So, and that's my process. So I'll come back and show you when this one's done. Right, I don't know if this is going to show up at all. This is after a second pass on this particular section here. And if I compare that with the first pass, there's a lot of the light scratching is gone, so that first pass gets most of the scratching out. That second pass there is starting to really polish it up, and on the third pass it's just going to look spectacular. So I'll typically do about 3. This can's got some damage in the way it was created. These were made with metal spinning, and there's a ring there that I would have to sand out. It's quite deep, and there's no way I can do that and keep this can intact, so I'm not touching that. I have no intention of destroying it. I'm trying to make it just look a little bit prettier. And normally I wouldn't go to this length because it does take away from the age of the set, but this one's a full restore, so realistically making it all nice and shiny so everything looks good is kind of the sensible option here. I've also got a couple of dents, and those dents are really hard to take out, particularly with these cans, because the can itself is crimped in. So there's 2 lugs which are riveted into the side of the can. I could drill those rivets out, or I could undo these crimps, neither of which I'm going to do because both risks damage to the can, and I can't easily get those rivets back in, and those crimps may break. This is only a kind of an impregnated cardboard type coil former, so anything too strenuous is going to just cause irreparable damage to it. So there is clear view, and it probably isn't showing up in this light, but there is clear view to the bottom of the can through the center of the coil, so I could try and push it back out. Typically what happens is you end up with 2 dents, one going one way and one going the other, so I'm just going to polish into those dents and try and minimize how they look, and if I can do that I'll be happy enough with that. It's a little bit scratched up on the top, but overall the can's looking pretty spectacular compared to how it was, so all the cans will look like that when I'm done, and then we can start reassembling the chassis. Alright, so polished and not polished. Be a fairly obvious difference even in this appalling light. So that one is now done. It's taken probably 20-25 minutes, I guess, but worth it, I think. So this one next. Now this one is not such a problem, because if you undo, this is the second IF, if I undo these 2 nuts, the internals will fall out, and I can clean the can with the coil out of the way, and then I can clean up the trimmers as well. But on the first IF, the oscillator coil is in there as well, and it's actually crimped on the same way that other coil was, so I may not be able to get that out, which could be a problem for cleaning up the trimmers. We'll see how we go when we get to it. I'm doing the right thing and leaving it till last. The tuning gang soaking in evaporust for probably a good 24 hours now, maybe just under 24 hours. It's the first sort of large scale use of evaporust I've tried, so we'll have a look, see how it comes out. I'm told it's perfectly safe for everything other than steel. Now I'm already seeing some really interesting stuff. I don't know what this is. It may be flux or something. Just this yellow gunge in where the plate's attached to the shaft. Ooh, and some lovely crusty yellow gunge there. So I don't know what's causing that or what's caused it, but we'll try and scrub it off. See how the metal looks. really don't know what that is. But yeah, no, the rust is there's still rust on the tops of these plates here. So I think, I don't know, people still seem to swear by evaporust. And I guess it's done something, but you know, the rust was fairly localised to the top here, and there's still quite a bit of muck on there. The last one of these I took apart was a Philco one, and it was a bit of a nightmare because so the rotor is actually electrically connected to the main body, and it's done through these spring clips, and on the Philco one I took apart, those spring clips were riveted in. On here they're not really, so you can actually pull those and slide them out. Given that I can do that, which I hadn't thought about before, I'll take all three of those out, undo that, which is just a single bearing onto the end of the shaft to tension this against the bearings in the front there. I think if I take all three of those out, take that off, the rotor will just come out, and then the stator plates will come out, and then I can give it a really good clean up. I won't be able to get the frame apart because it's staked over. If I do that, I'm going to risk major damage. If I take everything apart, the only thing I risk is sanity, because everything has to go back with precision alignment. And when I did the Philco one, I put it all back together, got it perfect, took me quite some time. And then I realised that I'd aligned everything without doing this up. I had it finger tight, not tightened. As soon as I tightened that, everything bound up and I had to start again. So hey, yeah, we might do that. What's the worst that could possibly happen? I already don't have any here, so it should be good. And that'll give me a chance to give it a much better clean, because I'm a wee bit concerned about all that yellow sulphury looking gunge that's appeared. We'll give that a proper clean out, I think. So I've been working on this dial, and I've tried a few different things in order to clean it. Isopropyl alcohol didn't really have a whole lot of effect. I gave mineral turpentine a go. That had absolutely no effect at all. I tried some CLR, which is I think it stands for calcium line rust. So it's a mild acid. And that actually had a really good cleaning effect on it. And I did test it way off on the edge first and left it for a bit just to make sure that it wasn't going to actually cause any major problems with the celluloid. Cleaned really well, but it also, as you can see from the line up the top, this area just above the 600, just here, was where I tested it. and you can see that it's kind of taken away some of the ink. Now, I'm not sure of the condition of that ink, because as you can see, the dial's in pretty rough condition. So I'm not sure how clear that was to start with, because the next thing I tried was water, which is kind of the last thing I tried because water-soluble inks were quite common. And water's working really well, so I slowly worked my way across to almost 700 on the dial, and there's probably 10 minutes work getting the first 5 or 6 bars and the 600 uncovered. So this is going to take me a while, and I'm obviously going to need to be quite careful. It's quite good with the bars being so far apart, because I can kind of rub between them with a cotton bud. As I get further up, those bars come closer and closer together, and I won't have that freedom. But the ink is quite deeply embedded. It's almost like it's been heat formed into the plastic, which is probably helping it adhere, but I don't know how well that's going to go further up, particularly around the middle, just where the pointer's pointing now. You can see where the pointer's been pushed in and scuffed against it, and it's taken some of the ink off. So I'm just going to close it. Excuse me, I'm just going to slowly work away at this and see how clean I can get it with a pile of cotton buds and a wee dish of water, and we'll see how we go with it. So just a couple of things that are becoming apparent here. One is that I don't think this ink is water soluble. It seems to be holding up reasonably well to cleaning with water. And the second thing is, I'm not sure if that line across the top that I thought was a cut line is actually ink at all. I think it could well just be a dirt shadow of some sort, or something that was drawn on later. Maybe it was a line, but it was added after the fact, because it's certainly coming off very, very easily, whereas the rest of the dial scale is staying pretty well put. I've scrubbed this reasonably well with cotton buds and water, and the dirt, as you can see, is just coming off. I'm working at it slowly and carefully because I still don't trust it, but the bits where it's dim are actually where the pointer had scraped across the dial, which is also where it's actually hardest to get the dirt off as well, presumably because it's scratched into the surface of the plastic. But it's coming off, and it's coming off well, and I think the dial's actually going to look pretty good when I'm done. And I've found some rivets to re-rivet this back on. So what I'm probably going to do is take these 2 rivets that are holding it on off, take this out, and I will scan it for reference so that I have a copy to remake this if I ever need to. But yeah, pretty happy with how it's going so far. The pointer mechanism, there is no identifying marks on it. I have been told by what I'd consider to be a reliable source that these were made by Crow, but I haven't found any advertising from Crow. Well, I haven't found much advertising from Crow manufacturing at all. But what I didn't see this style of dial. So yeah, I'm interested to hear from anyone that can either confirm or deny who made these, and I am definitely looking for a couple, if not 3 of them. There's our wee stash of dirty cotton buds, and here's our clean dial. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's shown up the scratched area, but that, it was always there. It was just covered in dirt, so I don't consider that necessarily to be a negative thing. So there it is against the light. Yep, really happy with how that's come out. So thanks for coming along on this restoration with me. As you can see, I've got the transformer all tidied up, and that's ready to go back into the chassis. I'm just in the process of doing some wiring now, and we'll also pull that tuning gang apart and give that a bit of a clean up as well. But we'll save that for next time, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.